Welcome to Education Without Borders. In this lesson, we want to ask ourselves, what do we understand by the term sustainable or sustainability? When you hear of Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations, what comes to your mind? So we want to explore this thing called sustainable. A lot of times somebody tells you, oh, that one is not sustainable, explain the sustainability, and so on and so forth. And in everything that you do, especially if it's a project or you have a goal to achieve a certain objective, there must be the element of sustainability. And that is why Education Without Borders wants to explore this term called sustainability. Let me give a very simple example of a sustainable system. An education system is sustainable because you can predict that if it is here today, if you're educating young people or even older people, mature people, there will always be people demanding that service in the future. And therefore, I would look at that system as a sustainable system because it is a system that has any input from people, human beings, and human beings form a very sustainable ecosystem. So I would therefore define a system as being sustainable or a project being sustainable as one that is able to replicate itself, not just for now, but even for the future. You can ask yourself, for example, if you are starting a new business or an enterprise, if you are an entrepreneur, you would ask yourself, how will this project of mine or business of mine be sustained? What is the sustainability? So the first thing I would suggest you ask yourself is, what are the key components of this business or this enterprise of mine? Does it need input from a source that is sustainable? Does it need input from a source that is a one-off? If it is a one-off, then it becomes just a one-off project that is not sustainable. You need to keep rethinking about how will you provide the input. But here we want to encourage our learners to look at, if you're looking at something to do, a project to do with sustainability in mind, look at the input. And I would like to suggest also that as you look at the source of input, usually the more natural it is, the easier it is for you to be able to propel it or propagate it in the future, as opposed to when you have to all the time create something fresh or to import something for you to make that business move to the next level. So it's always good to look at the local ecosystem. What is it that you have? What is it that you can be able to get from your environment? And if you are able to get as easily as possible, then you are then able to release your efforts to thinking on how you can grow your enterprise or your business from level 1 to level 2. But if you keep scratching your head to get the input into that product, then that's when we say that it may have the risk of not being sustainable. Let me give another example. Sometimes you find new products coming to the market and people get very excited and they purchase them, they support them, they market them, and so on and so forth. But if you don't think about the sustainability, putting in place a system that will help wherever the input is coming from to develop. Let's look at an example of a multinational company, even a company like a food processing company. A food processing company is a company that relies on farmers. And therefore, if you are thinking of starting such a business, I would recommend you think of having it as close as possible to those farmers. For example, if you want to deal with the fruits, ask yourself, if I'm setting up, say, a manufacturing plant or a processing plant, where will the input be coming from? If it is, for example, processing of oranges, mangoes, and so on, do we have farmers around that area who can be able to provide? In that way, then, you'll find that enterprise will be sustainable. Let us look at another example of a school. Why do schools pitch in very high density areas? In areas where, for example, you have even industries, because those industries need workers, and those workers are the people who are having families, young families and children. Therefore, by pitching a school or setting up the school near such an area, then the proprietor had sustainability in mind. So whether you do it consciously or unconsciously, therefore, we all are in concurrence that sustainability is a very key part of a consideration as you go into pitching, starting a business or setting up an industry or trying any other project. Let us look at education. Remember, we are in education without borders, and therefore we want to again remind ourselves that this is already a classroom which has no borders. It is a digital classroom where the lesson for today is entrepreneurship. Is it a sustainable project? I would say yes, because already there is a supporting system of internet. You need data, you need the data bundles, you need the internet to be able to connect. And therefore, education without borders is relying on the Internet of Things to reach people. We are also reaching out to people that our biggest customer base is human beings in the world. And we have very many of those who have connectivity. Therefore, I would say this is a venture that is sustainable, and it would apply to any other, and especially if it is done within the confines of as natural as possible, as need-driven, as responsive to the people's needs. And that is why all the time we keep asking you to drop us a comment and also subscribe so that you'll be able to be alerted when there's new knowledge emerges. And remember, knowledge can never be knowledge if it is not looked at in different ways. So this is one way of looking at information, at insights. And I would say we are looking at sustainability and asking ourselves, is this sustainable? I would say anything that is natural, that comes naturally, that you have a passion for, you have a strength towards, and you have the source readily available, the source of the input, then it is sustainable. Things become unsustainable when, for example, it becomes very expensive. Maybe I would need to, for example, spend a lot of money to build something for me to use it to explain. I don't need to go and start building a house myself, or a structure myself, or a road, or a bridge, or an airport for me to teach. It can indeed be very interesting, but can you imagine the amount of resources I would spend just to teach my learners how a building is done? That approach is not sustainable. It will drain me out, and I will not be able to teach the next lesson. The best way to go about it is to use the available information. There is available information. There are already other buildings, other roads, other airports being done. You partner with those ones, and then we have the knowledge and the skill in our minds to be able to explain. Then it becomes sustainable. So here in Education Without Borders, we want to encourage our learners, as they think about how to be enterprising, how to be innovative, has to think about sustainability. Never lose that. It has to be, ask yourself, is it sustainable or not? Because if it's not sustainable, it will drain your energy and you'll not be able to proceed to the next. Then you'll be branded as somebody not, you are not reliable. You are branded as an unreliable person. We would hate our learners to be branded as unreliable, especially after taking them through this series of lessons, and especially this particular one on sustainability. Think sustainability. Even the United Nations has 17 Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Among them, they are, the usual ones. We know them. We may not maybe have put them within the context of sustainability, but whatever project you are doing can fall into any one of those 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Are you addressing food insecurity? Are you addressing housing? Are you addressing quality education? Are you addressing climate action? Are you addressing life on Earth? Are you addressing the life under the sea? All those fall under any one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations. And remember, if a whole body like that finds it important to focus and have targets, and even a timeline, by 2030, there is a goal, there is a target that all those need to be put in place, and all the agencies in place are working very hard to ensure that those goals are realized for the good of humanity and the earth. And therefore, in Education Without Borders, you can see we are contributing towards the education, quality education for all. We don't have borders, no, it is for all. We have been fully aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And I believe each one of us, wherever we are, if we keep that in mind, whatever project we start, ask yourself, is it sustainable? If you started it today, if I come back after 5 years or year 2030, God willing, to keep us to see that, will that project still be going on? That is what sustainability really means. Thank you very much for watching this episode on sustainability and being our very patient viewer, all our patient student in this lesson on sustainability. Don't forget to subscribe, share this information, because information not shared is useless. It's not useful at all. It might help somebody. And the aim is for us to live on this earth that God gave us in a sustainable manner. Let us think sustainable all the time. Thank you for watching. We shall be back in our next video.